My name is Carlton Cartwright. I'm the Executive Director for the Veterans Memorial and Multicultural Histories Incorporated. Today's date is the 7th. The 7th of March. And it's Monday morning. We are at a location called RAC Mortgage Banker in the city of Tampa. And sir, what is your name?
My name is Charles Gray.
Okay, Mr. Gray. And how old are you now?
I am 85 years old.
Congratulations, sir.
Thank you.
And where were you born, by the way?
Elyria, Ohio.
Where?
Elyria, Ohio.
Elyria?
Yeah, 25 miles from Cleveland.
Oh, okay. All right. And what branch of the service did you serve in?
U.S. Army.
Did you retire?
Yes, I did.
Where were you at the time you went into the military?
I was at Howard University.
Oh, okay. So did you finish your degree before you went in the service?
Yes, I did.
In what?
History and education.
Okay. All right. How did you find Howard to be? What year was that?
I graduated in 1961 in June.
Okay.
I went on active duty in October.
Oh, that's just at the beginning of the Vietnam War?
That was the beginning of the Vietnam War, yes. It started and we had just integrated the U.S. Army.
Okay, and by the way, what were those two, what do you mean when you say integrated? What did that
President Truman at the time, they passed a law to integrate the Army, and Hyman P. Chase, Colonel Hyman P. Chase, my PMS at Howard, we started out with 500 cadets when I was a freshman, and we graduated to 27. His point was he would graduate the best second lieutenants that Howard had because, number one, we had to be twice as good. And he knew the Army was going to be integrated.
Oh, okay. And what did that mean to you that I don't know if it's your unit or your class, what did that mean to you that you had to be twice as good? Why did you say that?
It was a challenge to be twice as good because I knew I couldn't get promoted unless I was.
Is that because you're African American?
Yes.
And what was the political atmosphere as you were going into the service at Howard, for instance? Amongst the students, since you were one of them.
Well, I was Greek at the time when I went into the.
What is that acronym?
Kappa Alpha Psi was the Greek person at Howard, and the Greeks, most of us were in ROTC. Okay.
So when you graduated from ROTC and went into service, you were already an officer?
A second lieutenant.
Second lieutenant, exactly. So where did you go to basic training, by the way?
Well, we called it basic officer training was at Fort Knox.
In Kentucky?
In Kentucky. I was a cavalry officer. I commanded a platoon when I first went to Europe.
Okay. So tell me, so you went to officers training school?
Yes.
Right? Was that acronym OTS?
Pardon me?
What was the acronym for officers training school? Was it different? Because I think sometimes I was in the Air Force.
Yes.
And I believe that maybe it was different, but just correct me if I'm wrong.
Well, officers training.
Okay. All right. And so what was that like? What was that all about?
Well, it was different. It was my first exposure to the Army, really. I was 26, 27 years old.
Right.
And I grew up in the Army.
Okay. And 30, how many years did you do? 30 years?
A little over 31, 32 years.
31, okay. So how long was OTS?
6 months.
And what was the training like for 24 weeks?
Very disciplined.
Well, do you feel like there was any either overcurrent or undercurrent of racism? Were your trainers, were they African American or were they Caucasian?
Caucasian, predominantly. A lot of the officers were from the South when I first went in.
How'd they treat you?
treated me well.
Okay. How was the food?
I got to think about that. It was okay. It was okay.
Okay. We'll come back to that a little later. All right, so it's 24 weeks of OTS. What was the next duty station? Did you take a break and come home first before you went here?
I had a break for about 30 days after class.
Right.
And I was assigned, got orders for Europe.
Okay. Where in Europe?
I was in Mannheim,
Germany.
Swabach, yeah, Mannheim, Germany, and Swabach.
Okay. How long was the tour?
5 years.
For all three combined?
Well, there were 2 years, 2 different tours. One was 3 years, the other was 2.
Okay. Tell us about it.
Well, the first time I went, I was platoon leader for a 39-man platoon,
Okay.
armored cav. We screened the border, the Czech border, for the Russians.
Right.
We were watching their movements.
You were watching for the Russians.
We were watching the movements of the Russians
Got it.
on the Czech border.
And were there ever any incidences? By the way, throughout basic training, and also if were there any incidences? Anybody get hurt? Any injuries? How about you? Did you suffer any injuries going through basic training?
No, I didn't.
Okay. Did we lose anybody through basic training at the time you were in there?
No, we didn't.
No casualties?
Okay.
Nice. So, tell us about the 3 tours the 3 locations in Germany.
There were 2 tours. The first location was Mannheim. I was the platoon leader of a 39-man platoon. Okay, we had a platoon of infantrymen and mortars and scouts.
Okay. Infantry, mortars, and scouts.
Yes.
Okay, and were you constantly on bivouac, on maneuvers, lots of training?
Lots of training. We spent most of the time in the field. I spent 18 months in the field when I was in Germany.
What did that consist of? Were you living in a hole, or did you have a tent, or what?
No, I had a tent, and like I said, I had 2 tanks too, by the way. I had a tent, and what we did, we tracked the enemy as to what he was doing each day, and submitted the reports to the commander, a captain at the time, Captain Burt.
And were there any casualties? Anybody get hurt? Any injuries? Any incidences that occurred?
The only instances that we had was basically a lieutenant from the other platoon lost his map, and we had to go back and remake our positions. They projected 85% casualties on my squadron within the first 48 hours.
And?
Well, we had to go back and redo our positions because he lost the map where we had put our positions in, and the enemy had it.
Okay, but you didn't lose any manpower?
No.
Okay. Okay, so how long were you in Mannheim?
3 years.
3 years. Where'd you go next?
Swabach.
What was that like?
It was different. I was the XO of a truck, I was transportation then. I switched branches, and I was the XO of a truck battalion.
You switched branches?
Yes. I went from armor to transportation.
Oh, okay. All right. And so what kind of leadership were you given, for this job?
Okay. As the XO of a truck battalion, I was responsible for the key staff officers, the S4, the S1, the S2, and the S3. And they all reported directly to me, and I worked for a commander who wanted the commanders to report to me too before they got to him. So I had them all.
Okay, and these were all black units? African American?
No.
Or was it a mix?
It was a mix.
So during that time, you actually you were a commanding officer, so to speak, in these situations over, like you're saying, integration.
Yeah.
So it was an integrated service by, okay, got it.
When I was commissioned, the Army was integrated. that year.
Uh-huh.
So it's always been integrated for me.
Okay. All right. And how long were you in, what, Swabak?
Swabak, 2 years.
Uh-huh. So, well, let's talk about the third one, and then let's go back and talk about interacting with the people on the economy, you know, the civilians.
Okay.
Okay, so where was the third place?
But I was only in Germany for 2 years, for 2 tours.
Okay.
Okay.
So it's 2 tours, but I thought you said 3 cities.
No, just 2 tours.
Okay.
Okay.
So what were the people like on the economy? The Germans?
The Germans, my commander wanted me to go to the meetings with the mayor of Swabak because he didn't want to go. So I went to a lot of the meetings there representing him.
Why didn't he want to go?
He just didn't want to go. He didn't want to do physical therapy, with the men. He didn't want to run with the men in the morning.
Physical training, PT?
Training, yes. I ran with the men 5 miles every morning.
Wow. Yeah. So, okay, so now, how was the food?
The food was pretty good.
Food
was pretty good.
Okay. Do you make any German friends?
Yes, yes. Quite a few.
Families, individuals?
Families and individuals.
I won't forget a lot of the restaurants, but anyway. Okay, so everything went peacefully against this, with the Iron Curtain at that moment while you were there.
While I was there, I had problems with the Russian army, with the Russian officers from time to time.
What was your interaction with them?
When I was in Berlin, I had an interaction with the Russian captain.
And what was the problem?
He came on the bus and wanted to take money from the people that were there, to include myself.
This is a civilian bus?
Yes. But we were in uniform.
Okay, so he knew who you were.
Yes, he did.
Okay, so how did you cope with that? Without getting shot?
Well, I basically put my hand on my 45.
Okay. Were you by yourself?
No, there were several other people on the bus.
No, I mean, were you the only military person?
Yes.
Okay, and so what happened?
I put my hand on my 45, he backed off.
Okay. And was he alone?
Yes.
Okay, that's interesting. So just one individual, he was in uniform?
Yes.
And he came on the bus to rob everybody?
Yes.
Okay, and thank God you were prepared, so good job. Any other incidences?
That's the only incident.
That was the only one? So where did you go after Germany?
I came back to Fort Knox.
Uh-huh.
I commanded a advanced individual training unit.
Okay.
800 people. I had 14 classes. I graduated a class every Friday, and every Monday I welcomed a class. We were training on the new radios at the time for Vietnam.
How long was that tour for you?
That was 2 years.
Any casualties?
No.
About to get hurt?
I was at Fort Knox.
Okay. So where did you go after that?
Vietnam.
Okay. And how long were you in Vietnam?
2 separate tours.
How was that, a year apiece?
Year apiece.
And what was that? What year was that when you went?
When I went to Vietnam the first time, it was 67, 68.
Uh-huh.
And I came back for 9 months and went right back. And I was the second tour, I was a major, and I was the Division Transportation Officer for AmeriCal, which was the largest combat division we had at the time. It was 23,000 strong. Lieutenant Colonel Colin Powell was in our S3 at the time. Him and I became friends, and I worked for him at the Pentagon after I got back to the States.
I know you mentioned S before. What does S stand for exactly?
Well, it's a staff officer.
Uh-huh.
3 is operations.
Okay. And that's who Colonel Powell was?
Yes.
S3, okay.
Lieutenant Colonel Powell at the time.
So, if you could just go ahead and speak about the 2-year tour, what it was like being with and serving under Colonel Powell, and also, I think you've heard me ask this a couple of times, if you can give any input on casualties over the 2-year period?
Vietnam was different. I was initially, when I went to Vietnam, a captain. I commanded a medium truck company.
Right.
We did double turns between An Khie and Pleiku, 2 different cities in Vietnam. And we supported the 101st and the 1st Cav. I lost drivers. We went through Pleiku every morning, and the Vietnamese, North Vietnamese were shooting at us when I first took the unit over. And I put snipers in the city and started shooting people after a certain time of night. My guys were shooting people after a certain time of night to keep us from being ambushed.
Sorry, last part?
To keep us from being ambushed.
Okay.
I was with my troops when they went in to the city. On the other side of the city is where we took off and did a double turn each day. 7 days a week through 2 monsoons.
What kind of weapons were being used for the fire exchange from both sides? I'm sure you're familiar with, our side.
Yeah.
Do you know what the Vietnamese were using?
AK-47s.
And we were using 16s, M16s?
Yeah, we used M16s that jammed on us sometimes when it got wet and dirty. But that weapon's been fixed by now. But initially in Vietnam, it jammed on us. I carried a grease gun, tanker's gun, submachine gun. That's what I carried.
Okay. Casualties? Can you sum up over the 2-year period how many military personnel you lost under your command, or I don't know.
I lost my first year when I commanded the unit. I lost 10. Okay. And the second time I was there, I planned the transportation for land, air, and water for a combat division was 23,000 strong.
Right.
It was the largest division in the Army, combat division in the Army at the time.
Okay, and you said 23,000, right?
23,000.
Yeah, that was huge.
So we had 3 line brigades.
3 what?
3 line, what we call line brigades.
Oh.
Each brigade had about 3 battalions.
Wow. Right. How did you get along with your fellow officers and your enlisted personnel overall?
Very well.
I take it they had a lot of respect for you.
Yes, sir.
I figured as much. So what was it like serving under Colonel Powell at that time?
Lieutenant Colonel Powell was great. I worked for a brigadier general who was attached to the general 3-star for logistics. Lieutenant Colonel Powell worked for the general also, but he was in the operations end of it.
He what?
Operations, S3.
Okay, right.
I was the division transportation officer. He was the S3.
Okay. Okay. What are your other memories? As far because Vietnam was in an era, and it was a conflict that we were involved in as a country, the United States.
Yeah.
And so, so much was going on with the protesters here in the States, plus the conflict again that you could feel from the Vietnamese people. Let alone, I don't know about the surrounding area, in Asia, but it just seemed to be a lot more conflicts going on than just Vietnam. So, and also, the political atmosphere. It just seemed to be in fire. This is my own opinion, through the entire 60s going into the 70s as it was. So I'm just asking you, what's your worldview about that? What was it at that moment?
For a black officer, being in Vietnam when I first started, it was different. I worked for a lot of Southern officers at the time in Vietnam. The stress of commanding men in combat and losing men in combat was not good. I had a lot of men who didn't know what they wanted to do when they shot at. They had to return to being shot at, and that bothered them. I found out that the men looked at you as a commander and see what you were going to do when
right.
you were shot at. Thank God I was able to return fire, and I killed the enemy when I had to.
Right. So, but by the way, how did you handle the stress? How did your fellow soldiers, how did yourself, how did you handle all that stress?
By not letting them know I was stressed.
You apparently you were successful?
I'm still here.
I'm still here, okay. Okay, I'm skipping ahead a little bit, but anyway, from your career, I really should wait because we're just getting into it, it sounds like. But have you maintained close relationships with people that you were in the military with up to today?
Yes, I have, but a lot of them, 85 years old, a lot of them are not still here.
They're gone. Yeah.
They're gone.
I understand. My father was a Buffalo soldier. We buried him a couple of years ago. He was 99.
Okay.
So anyway, so Vietnam, after Vietnam, where'd you go?
Well, after Vietnam, I came back and I worked at the Pentagon, information systems.
How long were you there?
2 years at the Pentagon.
Information systems?
Information systems.
And what year was that? Was that in the 70s?
Yes.
What was information systems like then?
Well, we were targeting the enemy with our, shall we say, our satellites. We tracked the enemy soldiers and their units, all the armies in the world.
Around the world?
Yeah, we tracked them every 24 hours. Wow. And we retargeted.
That sounds like that was an incredible job.
Yes, it was. Yeah. We first of all, we had to redigitize the whole world. Mm-hmm. And then after that, we tracked everything from our satellites. And we still do today, but we're better at it.
Well, I hope so, yeah.
Well,
how accurate was that tracking at that time?
Very accurate. We could hit a license tag from space.
Wow, incredible. And how long were you in that job?
2 years.
Where'd you move on to after that?
Well, basically, I was selected as regional director for selective service. Now, and I was getting ready to hang up my hat, and I was the first black officer that was regional director for selective service.
Congratulations.
As you know, we predominantly draft minorities. So
right.
I had 13, 14 states, at which time I would go to each state and talk about the draft. I met the governors and the mayors and the mayors for each city.
And how they feel about it? Who was opposed to it?
Well, that's a good question. As you know, I don't have an accent. And when they talked to me on the phone, they didn't know I was black.
Got it.
And so it was, especially when I went to Boston.
When you went to Boston?
I went to Boston. It was different. So a lot of the people, long story short, a lot of the people in the States that I had on the East Coast did not know I was black.
Right.
And wherever I went, they didn't know I was black because of I had no accent.
Okay. Well, after they saw you, what did they think that you were?
That's a good question. I can only answer with their performance and interacting with me was pretty good.
Everything was fine.
Yeah.
That's just perfect.
Okay. Since I was the first.
Okay, so what was the next job? Did you retire?
I retired in '93.
Okay, and what did you do so tell us about your life from '93 to now.
Okay. I started working for the Department of Transportation.
In what state? The federal, the country, or D.C.?
No, well, let me back up.
Okay.
I worked for GSA in Washington, D.C. For about a year. Okay. They wanted me to stay and work there. And I chose to come back to Florida to retire here. I got a job offer from the Department of Transportation. I was qualified in water, land, and air. And so I went to work in Tallahassee.
Okay.
At our headquarters, transportation headquarters. Then I came down here and worked in Tampa for the Department of Transportation.
Okay. All right. To go back to the service for a minute, whether you were on R&R or not, okay, while you were in the military.
Yeah. Is
there any other place that you were able to travel, with Australia while you were in Vietnam, or whatever, that you haven't mentioned already?
I was at NATO in Belgium.
Where?
NATO, headquarters in Belgium.
Okay.
I was in R&R in Hawaii.
Okay.
Okay. I can't mention a few other places I was at.
That's fine. Okay. By the way, so what was your rank when you separated?
I was a full colonel.
You were?
Yeah.
Did you ever have the opportunity to become a general?
Yes, I did.
And how did that go?
Well, I got a letter stating I was selected the first time when I was considered, but I wasn't, there was no slots at the time.
You were selected, but there were no slots?
Right. Okay. And I was in the Transportation Corps and limited slots for general officers.
All right.
So I didn't get promoted to general. I retired as a full colonel.
Did you miss that? Did you miss that opportunity to become a general?
Initially, but once I retired, I was okay.
Yeah, okay, so anyway, so I digress. Where did we leave off in civilian life?
Okay, I was with the Department of Transportation for about 4 or 5 years. Then I went to work for a consultant who worked for me when I was at the department.
Okay.
I don't want to mention their name right now, but
that's
the
fine.
bottom line is I worked for them.
Okay.
In Tampa.
Okay.
Okay. And for about another 5 years. And then I retired from the Department of Transportation and the U.S. Army. And I retired from them and Social Security.
Okay. We've got to go back. So what was it like, and was it a daily interaction with Colin Powell, with the Colonel, Lieutenant Colonel?
It was, yes, it was a daily interaction at the time, but when I went to the Pentagon, when he was Army Chief of Staff, I met him in the hallway, and he didn't know I was there at the time, and he grabbed me. I worked for my namesake, General Gray, who was a 3-star who reported directly to General Powell.
Oh.
And that's how that worked out. And basically, let me back up. When I was selected as Regional Director for Selective Service, General Powell had a lot to do with the selection.
Okay. Okay. So you made a friend.
Yes.
Besides a professional associate, I'm sure that you'll never forget.
He's a good friend of mine.
I figured that out. Okay. Oh, by the way, were you drafted or enlisted?
No.
No, you were in ROTC.
I was ROTC.
So you
I was commissioned.
You were looking forward to serving your country.
Yes. But it was only 2 years. I received a regular Army commission, turned it down, went with the Reserve Commission because I wanted to get out and teach school.
Okay.
I got promoted to captain in about 18, 19 months, and I decided to stay and went for a regular Army commission.
Okay.
I went back to my PMS, Colonel Hyman P. Chase, Lieutenant Colonel Hyman P. Chase, who was the commander in World War II of an infantry battalion. He jumped all over me for not accepting the regular Army commission that he gave me when I graduated. But he came on board, wrote me a letter, and I was commissioned as regular Army officer.
Congratulations. There was something else that you mentioned that you were able to achieve, and you were the first person to achieve a position a couple of times in your career, weren't you?
Yes.
Can we just go back to those a minute, please?
Well, I had to be the first because we were just integrated.
Right.
Okay, and I got 2 Army Bronze Stars.
Congratulations.
Performance in combat.
Yeah.
5 Army Commendation Medals.
Mm-hmm.
Over my civilians, not civilian, but my assignments in the States and other assignments.
Right.
I was in the Middle East, Southeast Asia, and in Germany.
You were in the Middle East?
Yes.
We missed that.
Yes.
Okay, so I understand. Well, we're just about, if you can think of other things, otherwise I'm just gonna, so how did you touch, just quickly, did you ever have any problem staying in touch with your family while the entire time you were in the service?
No, I didn't.
Okay, good for you. And I would imagine in your position at least, when, maybe not during combat situations, did you always have supplies? Did you always have the supplies that you needed for yourself and for your troops?
Yes, I did.
Okay. So that wasn't too much of a challenge. Okay. So just to start closing out. Excuse me. Okay. Did your military experience influence your thinking about war or about the military in general? I'm sure that it did, but we're definitely interested in your take on that.
Oh, yes, it did. The first casualty of war is I used to say it was the truth on either side, but I found out in combat it was really the kids.
Please explain that.
In Vietnam, I was going to adopt a little boy, would have been my son's age now, my youngest son's age now, and he had nobody except me, and he got killed.
Mm-hmm. How old was he?
He was 10.
Okay, so I think I understand that. How did your service and experiences affect your life overall?
I grew up in the Army. I'm glad I went in the Army. I was going to teach school. The only teaching I did was at Command and General Staff College for about a year.
Yeah.
I taught the Russian division in the offense, so I really understand how the Russians fight.
Right.
And
where was that at? Where was that called?
Fort Leavenworth.
Oh.
Command and General Staff College. I taught there a year after I finished the course. But the bottom line is that being in the service, as I said, I grew up in the service, met a lot of people, lost a lot of friends. Of the 27 of us that graduated from Howard, 10 of us didn't make it out of Vietnam.
Is there anything else that you feel like you might be able to share with us? It's not still top secret.
No. I can only say that I enjoyed my 37 years in the Army. I would do it again. We have the best Army, we have the best service in the world. I'm very pleased to have been able to get promoted and to impact others as I did. I commanded over 3,000 men in 30 years plus.
Okay. Did I miss it? But it was 23,000 at one point. You weren't over all of them.
No, the 23,000 men at the division, I planned the transportation.
Gotcha.
Land, air, and water. I didn't command them, but I had direct commands as a platoon company commander, as a battalion commander, XO, as brigade commander.
Mm-hmm.
That was the 3,000.
Okay. Is there anything else that you can think of that you'd like to share with us?
The only thing I want to say to you is this, that when I was asked to do this, I thought about it, and I wanted to really pass on some of the things and memories that I had being in the service.
Right.
And the losses that I had in the service, both mentally and physically. And the plus part of being in the Army was that I impacted a lot of people in a positive manner. And I'm glad that I was able to do that.
Okay. The military, for, you know, so many of us, has proven to be, I mean, the discipline that we acquired and a lot of the camaraderie that we were able to cultivate while we were in the service, those things, they've changed our lives forever.
Yes, sir.
I'm pretty sure that you would agree with that. Thank you. And today we don't have the draft,
No.
but we still have a lot of young people, and I believe, I'm pretty sure I'm correct to say that many of them are going into the service, okay, and maybe still some of them still want to, well, some of them do look forward to going into combat, which is not a happy thing, but so my question is, what would you tell, and also even on a personal note, your own family, you know, children, grandchildren, great-grands, as far as becoming the future leaders in the military or even in government jobs, GS jobs, what advice do you have for them?
Boy. That's a loaded question. Everybody is different when it comes to going into the service. I had 2 sons, and neither one of them did well in the service, okay?
Okay.
No, and I raised them, so I know.
Right.
I commanded over 3,000 men, so I know men.
Right.
The service was good for me. I didn't want to go to college. My father was my hero. He convinced me to go to Howard. I was a jock. All I did was want to play sports.
Right.
And I found out there was something else besides sports.
Okay.
And Lieutenant Colonel Hyman P. Chase really impacted my life to be an officer. And that's how I became an officer at Howard and got commissioned.
What was his name?
Lieutenant Colonel Hyman P. Chase. He had 3 different advanced degrees. He was a lieutenant colonel with a chest full of medals. He commanded a battalion in Italy in World War II when the service was not integrated.
Was not in what?
Not integrated. World War II.
Okay.
Okay. And so he impacted my life. He was very disciplined, and he's the reason I stayed in the Army.
All right. Okay. Okay. Well, I'm going to thank you. I'm going to thank you for your service.
Thank you.
And I want to thank you for a very interesting and wonderful interview.
Thank you very much, sir.
Yes, sir. Good.
Answered all your questions, I hope.
I'm pretty sure.
I'll do that. I'll do that.
So, you know, that's why I put down there.
It's money. Here we go. Okay, what can you, please finish talking about your family?
Yes, it would be an impact of being in Vietnam twice. I don't know how my family was impacted with that. I normally don't talk about this a lot, but I will.
Okay.
My first wife, I had 2 sons, and I went back to Vietnam 9 months in between trips, and she wanted me to resign my commission, and I didn't, and I lost my wife. I lost my marriage at that time. In between my trips, I met another young lady, and I had a daughter.
Okay.
That I didn't know about. And I finally, when I found out about her, after I came back from Vietnam, we have a relationship. Her name is Dina. And so I had 2 sons and a daughter.
Right.
I would have had 3 sons and a daughter had I not lost the young man that I was going to adopt, the Vietnamese kid.
Gotcha.
I think the main thing is that I want to leave with men is that if you have a child, you never walk away from them. You're always there for them. I just lost my oldest son in May, this past May.
Sorry for your loss.
Yeah, that's really bothered me. I lost him in May, and
Can I ask you another question?
yeah.
How have you managed? I personally believe, well, I know for a fact because of all the work that I did for the State Department with juveniles incarcerated.
Yes.
And I heard you mention, I believe, earlier, something to the effect of, well, I'll just change the word trauma.
Yes.
The trauma that we go through inside and outside of the service. And, you know, I believe we've all done some grieving.
Yes.
And what has been your secret to have survived all of this?
When I was in the Army, commanding, especially in combat, my men was my most important asset.
Right.
Before myself. And I always protected them.
Right.
And it was not about me, it was about them.
Of course.
So that's how I dealt with it. That's exactly how I dealt with it.
I think a lot of us get through that by picking up and looking and seeing that we need to help the next person.
Yes. Well, you have to set the example for your men. And that's how your NCOs, your junior officers, they're watching you. And that's how it is. And I was fortunate to command with my rank at every level. And 3,000 men later.
God.
I was very fortunate.
We should all be very glad that we've had you in leadership positions.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. More than welcome.